All right. With the tediousness of item management and updating the info out of the way, we can get back to the more fun stuff. So now we can plant seeds, but if we do, it doesn't come out of our inventory. Even though I only picked one, I can plant three. Let's fix that. So let's go into our inventory component, and we're going to add a new function, remove item from hotbar. This will still update our inventory, but since we're using the hotbar, we can use the index of what we have selected to determine which inventory slot we should update. So when we remove an item from the hotbar, we need to get the amount that we're removing and the index that we're removing it. Oh, why did I change it? That's right, that's right. And the index that we're removing it from. These will both be integers. So we'll grab our inventory, we'll get a copy of the index, we'll break that open, and we will subtract from the current stack the amount that we're removing. Then we'll do a check to see if that is greater than 0. Let's copy this and move it up. We will, nope, not get, we'll set the array element based on that, drop that into place over here. The index will be the index that we've plugged in, and we are going to do a select for the item info, because if it's greater than 0, then we want to say, great, all right, you got 1 or 3 or 5 or however many left, reflect that. It's not greater than 0, well, then we will just set it back to empty. So if it's not greater than 0, then we will just make item info and just hide all the unconnected pins, because that can be just like that. If it is greater than 0, we'll do a make item info. Gonna grab all this and move it a little bit. And then we'll just plug everything in just like it was, except for the current stack, that'll come from the subtraction. Hook them all back up. Great. Now we'll compile that and go over into our player blueprint. Get rid of that for now. Go over to our use item function. Basically, when we use one of our consumable items, we would want to remove it from the hotbar, since this is our hotbar use command. So we'll create a function called remove items. Now this one will have an item info input, which will be of our item info struct type. It'll have the amount, which will be an integer. And now this one's going to have a Boolean that'll say b specific index. The reason we're doing it this way is because when we come back later to remove items for, say, crafting or quest rewards or stuff like that, we won't have a specific index. So we'll need to filter through our item info in order to get the correct one from our inventory. But if we have a specific index, we can bypass a lot of math and just use the index number, which we also need to add. So we'll add one more input, and that will be our index. It is of the type integer. We'll add a branch in here, and for now we're just going to hook up the specific index and then call our remove items from hotbar when it's true. So the amount will be plugged in here, and then the index to there. And then we'll come back and do the false later when we get closer to the crafting stuff. But for now, we can go back over into our event graph, and after we restore health and restore stamina, we want to remove items. Now we need to click that this will be a specific index because it's coming from our hotbar. The index will be the hotbar number that we have selected, and the amount, we'll just default this to 1 for now. After we do this, we need to do a delay until next tick. That will give this a chance to run all of its function before we start doing the next thing, which is updating our hotbar info, the button that reflects what we got left. So to do this, we have our get hotbar item data where we've got our player HUD and we're getting button for the item info. We can duplicate this one, and this will be get hotbar button. We can delete the item info portion and rename that return to be our button and make it of the type inventory icons. Plug that in here. Compile that back over to the event graph. Then we can call that get hotbar button and we'll refresh the item info inside of it. And to do that, we will get our inventory component, get the inventory itself, get a copy of the information at that same hotbar selected, and feed it in like that. Now you might be wondering why we haven't set up the seeds yet. I'm gonna double click and just do this right here real quick. And that's because this is checking and then planting. So there's a chance that this might fail, but if we plug this directly into our remove item, then it will always remove whether it plants or not. So we need to update our check plant seed to have a return node. So if we highlight this purple one, we can add an output. I thought it shifted. We can add an output, be successful. I'm trying. Change it to a Boolean. And then everywhere it is false, we'll return it as unsuccessful. So at the very first branch with our false, at the cast failed, at the is valid, and at the other cast failed. Basically, anytime it's doing its checks and comes across a portion that's like, oh, nope, can't plant here, then it was unsuccessful in removing the item. We'll copy that, and then at the very end, where we are spawning an item and then setting it, we can say that it was successful here. Compile that back to the event graph. We will add a branch directly after that check plant seed, hook our successful into it, and then the true goes into our remove. Compile that, and we'll go take a look. So I should be able to grab a seed and plant it, and then, yeah, it's out my inventory. And let's double check it. What happens if I have multiple? One, two, three. And one more final stress test. We'll grab them. And then we'll plant one, move it, go to the next hotbar slot, plant it, move it. All right, all three working appropriately. Although it is slightly hard to tell without that number on the button. So what we can do is go into our inventory icon UI element, and we'll set a text box directly onto our button. We can rename this to be quantity, change it to be a variable, and I'm going to set its horizontal alignment to the right and its vertical alignment to the bottom. I'm going to change the text to say 0 for a moment, change the typeface to italic, and the size to 15. Seemed to be a good size, but you can change it to whatever you like. That's what I'm going to use though. And then in our event graph, now that we have that available, we can go to the event graph. And after we're refreshing the item info or doing our pre-construct, we'll grab our quantity and we will set the text to reflect our number. Although we don't want it to necessarily have anything in there if we don't have anything in the slot. So we'll do another select node here, and we'll use our item info. Let's just take this this way a bit. We'll take our item info and we can break it open over here to get our current stack. If our current stack is greater than 0, then we'll just return that number. However, if it's not, then we want it to just be a blank so that our inventory slot at the bottom just has nothing. So now when we pick stuff up, our number gets updated, and as we put them down, it gets updated. Now, if you don't like the way it looks, where it has the tool icon and it has a 1, what we might do instead, if you don't like that, because I don't particularly, we'll just change this to be greater than 1. So if it's greater than 1, then it'll reflect how many is there. But if it's not, then it'll just have the blank icon. So our tools and our weapons don't have a 1 on them. And then when we have more than one item of a type, it will update. So we can check it out now. All right, cool beans. So we will be updating that later on in order to add when we come back to the crafting and stuff like that, because we won't be able to tell it specifically what index to pull the items from. We'll have to do a bigger search through our inventory. But for now, this will work. So I will see y'all soon to get started on some more fun stuff. Bye.